Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ryan Bujan, host of Cowtown Movie Classics, and tonight we are closing our tribute to legendary independent director and producer Roger Corman with a very fascinating film from 1964. It is The Tomb of Ligeia, starring the beautiful Elizabeth Shepperd and, of course, Vincent Price at his most gothic. Joining us tonight is the author of the book Lost Horizons Beneath the Hollywood Sign. He's recorded over 100 audio commentaries for the likes of Kino Lorber and Image Entertainment, and I'm very proud to call him a good friend, Mr. David Del Valle. How are you doing tonight, David?
Hey, Ryan. Well, we're here to celebrate the Poe Cycle of Roger Corman, which ends with Tomb of Ligeia. And Tomb of Ligeia to me is, well, Vincent loved this movie. Vincent used to say up until he did Theater of Blood, that Tomb of Ligeia was his favorite film in the horror genre. And I can understand that because of the 8 Poe films, one of which was with Ray Milland instead of Price. Otherwise, Price performed in all of them as the star. Ligeia is the only one that's shot on location. And it's shot on location in Norfolk. And the castles and the ruins of the Abbey are all authentic. And it really opened up the series, even though it was the final conclusion of that, which was never meant to be a series. Roger Corman always said each movie stood on its own, and we only made another one if the one before it made money. So Ligeia was kind of the swan song for the Poe films, but American International Pictures didn't let it go quite so easily. And they did 3 or 4 other movies where they put Edgar Allan Poe's name on it, like Cry of the Banshee and City Beneath the Sea, which was called War Gods of the Deep. But truly, the Poe series ended with Tomb of Ligeia. Robert Towne wrote the screenplay, and Robert Towne, of course, was famous for writing Chinatown, Oscar-winning, screenwriter. But Robert wrote the screenplay for a younger man, a more Lord Byron-esque kind of character. And even though Vincent's wig and he's clean shaven and he has the wraparound glasses, which just really scream 1964, because next to The Trip and The Wild Angels, Tomb of Ligeia is the hippest of all of Corman's Poe movies. So much so that when Roger finally said goodbye to AIP with Gas, he created a character of Edgar Allan Poe on a motorcycle. So he did acknowledge the Poe series, as he did in The Trip, where he has Peter Fonda dressed like Price. But Robert Towne had Richard Chamberlain in mind, because Richard Chamberlain was doing Hamlet in London. He was doing Lady Caroline Lamb, where he played Lord Byron. And it was Richard Chamberlain's performance in Lady Caroline Lamb, which was Sarah Miles and her husband, Robert Bolt, wrote this for her. He thought Richard Chamberlain should play Vernfell. So when Vincent heard this, he said to Roger, well, get me Marlene Dietrich's makeup man and we'll be fine. And whatever transpired in the makeup room, Vincent was as Byronic as he ever was. And of course, it harkened back to Dragonwyck, which of course was one of his first forays into Gothic territory. But now we come to Elizabeth Shepperd, who was mainly a stage actress. She did a few films, most famously after Ligeia, the Omen film, The Omen 2, that she had the most spectacular death. Her eyes get plucked out and then she gets hit by a truck. So that was her claim to fame in the horror genre. But Elizabeth is still with us, and she does conventions occasionally. She enjoyed making Ligeia. She told me one funny story I will relay to you. On one day during the shoot, she was going back to London and she hitched a ride with Vincent, and she realized she didn't have any money. And she said, Vincent, could you loan me 10 pounds till we get to in London, and I'll give it back to you tomorrow. So she said, Vincent got out his pocket watch, opened the pocket watch, took the back of it off, and unfurled that had been folded like a stamp, a 50-pound note. And he said, I always keep a little money in here in case of an emergency. So she spent the rest of the ride to London wondering what on earth happened in Vincent Price's private life that made him decide to hide money in various places. Obviously, and I'm speculating here, he found himself in some sort of predicament in the past where he didn't have any money. And so Elizabeth was very struck with that, because she said Vincent was one of the most joyful people, always looking out for her. And, during the filming, he said, well, Roger Corman's a firebug. He burns up every set I'm on. But you will notice in this that at the end of it, the flames go up and engulf the roof. But what it engulfs is the roof of House of Usher, which was filmed 4 years earlier in 1960 in Hollywood off Gower Gulch. And now here we are in the Norfolk Abbey in England, and he's got the same roof. And he told me years later, he said, if I realized, David, all you guys were going to start analyzing my movies, I would have made them a little better.
Oh,
and
but
so
I'm sure
you mentioned to me earlier, Ryan, that Roger became a producer after this more. He only directed a couple more movies. His last movie was Frankenstein Unbound, which was not successful, and then therefore Roger never directed another. And so Tomb of Ligeia, I think, is a great kind of cornerstone in Corman's career. It's a beautifully made film. It's a little slow in places. It's one of those things that it's mainly like Hammer films that were maybe a little more action oriented, but both Hammer films, AIP Poe films had the same. It's a movie about decor, costumes, and mood and atmosphere. Nothing really happens. But The Tomb of Ligeia, next to Barbara Steele and Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, are really the two main films dealing with necrophilia. Because there is no way you can watch The Tomb of Ligeia and not understand what Vincent Price is doing in that 4-poster bed with the corpse of the Lady Ligeia.
Mm-hmm.
It's right front and center. And this is 1964, where censorship was still well enforced, including in England. This may have gotten an X certificate in England. I can't quite, but Jonathan Rigby would remember. But in any case, Ligeia has a lot going for it. Great performance from Elizabeth. Great performance from Price, even though I think Roger, but you really couldn't have ended the series with any other actor other than Vincent Price. And I'm sure
absolutely.
Richard Chamberlain would say the same thing if you asked him, that he would have definitely deferred to Vincent in playing that character.
As fantastic as this cast is, and of course the legendary Robert Towne writing the screenplay, do you have any personal anecdotes regarding Roger Corman? Are there any personal memories you'd like us to know about?
Well, Roger Corman was, as Barbara Steele said, he was like a CPA. He came in, he was very nice, but he did not exhibit any kind of danger, any kind of Barbara couldn't quite figure him out. Elizabeth liked him a lot, but she said that as far as directing goes, he leaves the actors to do what they need to do. He will block. I've got loads of photographs of Roger directing. But what he's mainly doing is keeping everything. He's the captain of the ship. But I don't think Roger ever thought of himself as an auteur.
Mm-hmm.
He was a businessman and a producer. Because let me tell you something, Ryan, a real auteur filmmaker would sell his house to finish a movie. Roger's not going to do that. He may sell your house to finish the movie, but he never gets high on his own supply, as drug dealers are fond of saying.
And that's part of the reason we love him in his
Oh,
work.
yeah. It's no accident that Joe Dante had a cameo of Roger where he goes into a phone booth and fishes around for coins. Because Roger's cheapness was legendary.
Yeah. But you would never guess, based on the production value of these Poe films, they're all beautifully composed and they look much richer than I'm sure they probably cost.
Well, you can thank Daniel Haller for that. Danny Haller did all the sets on all the Poe movies, including the two English ones, Mask of the Red Death and Tomb of Ligeia, but he had to be uncredited because Roger had to use an English crew. Now, the cameraman on Ligeia is Arthur Grant, who photographed all the Hammer films. But Red Death is photographed by Nicholas Roeg.
Right.
And then Haller photographed most of the other Poe films. But the look, all of it, I think Roger Corman, my last comment on Roger's very much like Cecil B. DeMille. He was a man who put the thing together and got the best artisans he could to work for him. Best cameraman, best set decorator, best costumes. This is how Roger ran his company. And LIGEIA is a great example of it, you know, and for the one and only time he shot a Poe film outdoors.
And it's certainly a treat for the audience. Mr. David Del Valle, once again, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. And enjoy. Man need not kneel before the angels, nor lie in death forever, but for the weakness of his feeble will. You will always be my wife. When Vincent Price says that, I saw that when I was like, what, 1964, I thought that was just terrific, and I still do.
Without further ado, from 1964, written by Robert Towne, directed by the legendary Roger Corman, The Tomb of Ligeia.